In Season 1 of The Punisher, the former Marine Frank Castle hunts down and kills the remnants of the rival gangs, whose violent shootout led to the deaths of his wife and children. His revenge mission complete and a trail of bodies in his wake, Castle chooses to retire his Punisher vigilante moniker to move forward with a new peaceful life. With everyone believing him to be dead, Castle begins working as a construction worker named Pete, though he is still plagued by nightmares of his family. When one of Castle's new young and naive co-workers, Donnie Chavez, gets involved with dangerous gangsters, Castle is forced to intervene and kill all of the gangsters to save Donnie's life. This draws the attention of a hacker named Micro, who begins secretly surveilling Castle. Castle then finds Micro and tortures him for information. The hacker reveals that he is actually a former NSA analyst who received footage of Castle's Marine unit in Kandahar torturing and killing Afghani police officer Ahmad Zubair. Distraught by the US's violent torture practices, Micro passed the footage along to Homeland Security agent Dina Madani, who had been working with Zubair to bring down a heroin smuggling operation in Afghanistan. Micro's superiors were infuriated by this act, wanting to keep their illegal actions a secret, and sent hitmen to kill him to cover up their crimes. Instead, the hacker managed to fake his death and has been stuck living in the shadows to protect the lives of his beloved and grieving family. Castle explains that while serving as a Marine in Kandahar, he and his best friend Billy Russo had been recruited to a special unit known as Cerberus, where they were commanded to assassinate high-value targets. Castle quickly grew wary of his new unit's callous practices, and was suspicious when Cerberus's leader, William Rollins, branded Zubair as a traitor and ordered Castle to execute him. After growing disillusioned with Rollins and Cerberus's commands, Castle and Russo transferred out of the unit. Now, Castle realizes that Cerberus's actions were never legally sanctioned by the US Congress, and so, to cover up their crimes, Rollins and his allies order the deaths of not only Micro, but Frank Castle. And when the hit against Castle went wrong, it was his family that was caught in the crossfire. And so, Castle agrees to team up with Micro to take down those in charge of Cerberus and kill them all to avenge his family. Castle and Micro realize that another member of Cerberus must have recorded the Zubair torture video, and Castle realizes that his fellow squad mate Gunnar Henderson must be responsible, as he had similar reservations about Cerberus's practices. Upon reuniting with Henderson, the former Marine tells Castle that Cerberus's leader Rollins had been funding the unsanctioned unit by smuggling heroin from Afghanistan into the United States, and when the police officer Zubair discovered this criminal plot, Rollins ordered his death. Unfortunately, before Henderson can offer any more help or evidence to Castle, Rollins sends soldiers to kill them both. Castle barely escapes with his life, while Henderson is tragically killed. Meanwhile, Homeland Security agent Dina Madani wants to avenge the death of Zubair and begins her own investigation into the Cerberus unit. This leads her to seek out Billy Russo, who now runs a private military company called Anvil, to question him about Cerberus and the supposedly dead Frank Castle. As Madani gets closer to Russo during her investigation, their relationship turns romantic. Castle then finally reunites with his old friend, asking Russo to join his quest for vengeance and expose the heads of Cerberus for their corruption. Russo refuses to get involved, instead urging Castle to leave the past behind him and allow Anvil to set him up with a new life. But Frank turns down the offer. Secretly, Russo has continued to work with Rollins in the years since Cerberus, in exchange for the money needed to fund Anvil. As Frank Castle continues his violent quest for vengeance, Russo and Rollins plot together on how to stop him. Meanwhile, Castle's old Marine friend Curtis Hoyle now works as a counselor for veterans suffering from PTSD. Hoyle bails a young, troubled veteran named Lewis Wilson out of jail in the hopes of helping him readjust to a peaceful civilian life. When Wilson tries to join Anvil, Hoyle secretly speaks with Russo and warns him about the veteran's mental state. And so, Russo turns Wilson away, sending him on a further emotional spiral. Wilson begins crafting homemade bombs and setting them off across the city, killing many innocent people, as part of a message against a system he risked his life for in war, but never supported him in his return. As Castle joins Hoyle to try to stop Wilson, he is caught on camera and confirmed alive to the public, drawing unwanted attention toward his and Micro's secret mission. Unsure if he can trust Madani, but desperate after their setbacks, Micro gives the agent all of the evidence he and Castle have compiled against Rollins. Wilson then takes the journalist Karen Page hostage as she interviews a senator with anti-gun policies. Castle has a history with Karen as she has helped him evade jail time in the past, and so he comes to her aid, saving her from another bomb that kills Wilson in the explosion. Amidst the chaos, Castle is confronted by Madani, who explains that Micro has given her the evidence on Rollins and asks Frank to willingly stand down and trust her to protect him in the legal process. But that's when Russo arrives, opening fire and declaring that his old squad mate is too dangerous to be left alive. Castle manages to escape Russo, and Madani realizes that her new lover may be involved in the Cerberus cover-up. Rollins realizes that he is close to being exposed, and so he strikes a deal with the director of the CIA to pin all of Cerberus's crimes on Russo. Feeling the walls closing in on him, Russo becomes desperate to save himself, and so he kidnaps Micro's family to hold as hostage. Desperate to save them, Castle and Micro officially team up with Madani to bring down the heads of Cerberus once and for all. First, Castle officially records a testimony of all of the illegal acts that he committed and witnessed while serving on the Cerberus squad. Then he and Micro offer themselves up to Russo in exchange for the release of Micro's family. During the trade, Madani leads Homeland Security forces to intercept the deal, leading to a shootout with Anvil. Ultimately, Castle is captured by Russo, who flees the scene, while Micro is finally and emotionally reunited with his family. Russo and Rollins brutally torture Castle to give them access to Micro's computers, which have been rigged on a timer to upload the Zubair execution video online. Though the villainous duo managed to stop the timer, Castle reveals that he has recorded and uploaded his own torture, which contained both Rollins and Russo's confessions. Realizing he has no other option than fleeing, Russo helps free Castle and escapes as Frank brutally beats Rollins to death. As the season comes to a close, Russo draws Castle into a final confrontation at the merry-go-round near the site of Castle's family's deaths. Russo knew all about Rollins' plot to kill Castle all of those years ago and did nothing to intervene, leading to the deaths of Castle's family. And so Castle and Russo engage in a fight to the death. Madani arrives to try to stop the pair, but Russo coldly shoots her in the head. Castle then gets the upper hand on Russo, smashing his face into a broken mirror and horrifically disfiguring him before the police arrive. Russo and Madani are taken to the hospital, where they both miraculously survive their injuries. Frank Castle is released from custody thanks to the work of Madani, who helps pin all of Cerberus's actions on Russo. Micro is officially cleared of all of his original charges, finally allowing him to permanently return to a normal life with his family. And in the end, Frank Castle has avenged his family and is now ready to start taking care of himself, with the first step being to attend a veteran support group meeting led by his friend Hoyle. I want to cut in real quick and tell you about this video's sponsor, Raycon. Their everyday earbuds are so comfortable and deliver such high quality audio that they're not only my preferred way to watch my favorite content, but they're also my go-to earbuds for any and every situation. Their active noise cancellation drowns out even the most maddening of sounds, so I can use them when I go on a run, work out, or even take a phone call. These things are so good I could listen to my favorite music in the middle of a screaming crowd at a sporting event if I wanted to. The battery can last up to 32 hours, and with their quick charging function, 10 minutes of charging equals 90 minutes of battery. One of my favorite things about Raycon's earbuds is how easy they are to control. I tap on the left or the right side to adjust the volume up or down, a slight hold on or off for awareness mode. I can take a call, hang up the phone, skip a song, all with just a simple tap on the earbud without ever actually having to touch my phone. There are also so many unique color options to fit your personal style. I went with a classic black look for my earbuds, but mixed things up with a fun Galaxy-inspired protective case. So go to buyraycon.com/recap to get 20% off your everyday earbuds, brought to you by Raycon. You'll not only be getting your new favorite earbuds, you'll also be supporting this channel and continuing to make content like this. Alright, thanks to Raycon and thanks to you guys. Now let's get back to the recap. In Season 2 of The Punisher, 1 year has passed and Frank Castle is continuing to live a peaceful life off the grid. But that all changes when he meets Amy Bendix, who is confronted at a bar by a group of armed men. Castle steps in to save Amy, who explains that she is in possession of incriminating photos, and now the violent John Pilgrim will do whatever it takes to ensure those photos never go public. And so, Castle comes out of retirement as the Punisher to become Amy's protector. Meanwhile, Billy Russo is still in the hospital following his violent confrontation with Castle, claiming to have no memories past his time as a Marine. Dina Madani is skeptical of Russo's claims, believing that he is trying to evade responsibility for his many villainous actions. Eventually, Russo escapes his confinement in the hospital, prompting Madani to turn to Castle to help take down Russo once and for all. Castle agrees in exchange for Madani's help in protecting Amy. As Castle continues to serve as Amy's protector, he begins to form a paternal bond toward her. Castle reveals his vigilante alter ego, the Punisher, while Amy reveals that she had been a part of a group of con artists that were hired by the Russian mafia to take photos of the closeted Senator David Schultz kissing another man in order to blackmail him. Schultz's parents, Anderson and Eliza, are extremely powerful and deeply religious, and so to avoid a public scandal, they sent John Pilgrim to lead a team and kill all of the witnesses and destroy all of the evidence. Pilgrim is a former white supremacist and now deeply religious man caring for his ailing wife and their 2 sons. The Schultz family preyed on his vulnerability, offering to pay off his wife's medical treatments in exchange for his complete loyalty. And so, Pilgrim slaughtered all of Amy's friends, then the entire Russian mafia, and will now stop at nothing to finish his mission to kill Amy and destroy her incriminating photos. Unfortunately, amidst his relentless pursuit of Amy, Pilgrim's wife dies without him by her side. This devastates Pilgrim and leaves him without purpose, so the Schultz family holds his sons hostage to force him into further cooperation. Meanwhile, Russo begins being plagued by nightmares of a skull, which he doesn't yet realize is the symbol of the Punisher. As he evades the authorities, Russo dons a mask and takes on the moniker Jigsaw, as he begins sadistically hunting down all of those who have done him wrong in the past, including killing his abusive foster father. Amidst his rampage, Russo seeks the help of his former therapist, Dr. Krista Dumont, and the pair enter into an enabling romantic relationship. Russo then begins befriending members of Hoyle's veteran support group, convincing them to join him in his criminal activities. As if the world doesn't support them, they should all rebel and support themselves. And so, Castle teams up with Hoyle and Madani to bring down Russo and his growing army of resentful veterans. As Russo's gang violently rob a bank, Castle dons his Punisher attire once again to confront Russo, reminding him of his traumatizing nightmares. Russo genuinely doesn't remember his antagonism toward Castle, or the fight that resulted in his facial scars, only remembering Castle as his best friend. This causes Castle to hesitate while trying to take down Russo, allowing the villain to escape. Following the confrontation between Punisher and Jigsaw, Russo further radicalizes his crew to turn into an army against their oppressors. Trying to regain his memories on how his best friend turned into his greatest enemy, Russo angrily confronts Madani, who tells him that he was responsible for the deaths of Castle's family. Desperate to defeat the Punisher, Russo gets help from Dumont in finding Castle's ultimate weakness, his moral code. And so, Russo tricks Castle into believing that he has murdered several innocent women, devastating him and prompting him to surrender himself to the police. Madani and Castle's old friend Karen Page uncover the truth about the women's deaths, discovering that Russo had killed them and framed Castle. After easing Castle's conscience, Madani and Karen help smuggle him out of police custody, only to be thwarted by Detective Brett Mahoney, an honorable police officer who views the Punisher's violent vigilantism as a danger to the city. As Mahoney attempts to take Castle into custody, they are attacked by Pilgrim. Castle saves Mahoney's life, earning some respect, while Pilgrim flees the scene. Pilgrim then finally finds Amy, kidnapping her to lure Castle into a final confrontation. Meanwhile, Castle kidnaps Senator Schultz and interrogates him for information. Castle realizes that the senator has no knowledge of his parents' villainous actions, and so Hoyle alerts Detective Mahoney to help free him. Castle then shows up to the confrontation with Pilgrim, where the two engage in a brutal fight to the death. But as Castle gets the upper hand and prepares to kill Pilgrim, the assassin uses his final moments to beg the Punisher to save his sons from the evil Schultz family. This inspires Castle to show mercy and spare Pilgrim's life. After saving Amy, Castle storms the Schultz family residence, killing Anderson and Eliza to ensure Amy's permanent safety and helping the repentant Pilgrim reunite with his sons. Meanwhile, Madani realizes that Dumont is working as Russo's accomplice and confronts the therapist. The two women engage in a fight that ends with Madani accidentally pushing Dumont out of a window to her near death. Russo then attacks Madani for revenge, but she shoots her former lover, mortally wounding him and forcing him to flee. As Russo bleeds out, he calls the counselor Hoyle for support, not wanting to die alone. And that's when Castle arrives for one last conversation with his old friend. Russo apologizes for getting Castle's family killed despite having no memories of these events, before Castle puts Russo out of his misery. In the end, Castle bids Amy an emotional farewell as she prepares to head off to start a new life on her own. 3 months later, Madani has left Homeland Security to join the CIA. When she calls Castle for his help in apprehending a high-value target, he turns her down, as he has now fully embraced his role as the Punisher, protecting his city from the most violent of criminals.